Welcome to this week's Torah lesson. This week's Torah portion is Parsha Chayei Sara. The question of the week is, how can we create stability and balance in our lives? So in this week's Torah portion, Parsha Chayei Sara, the Torah begins and it says, Vayiyu Chayei Sara. And it was the life of Sarah, and she lived for Meya Shana, 100 years, the Esrim Shana, and 20 years, the Sheva Shanim, and 7 years. Then the Torah continues on to say, Shnei Chayei Sara. This is the life of Sarah. So the Rebbe asks a very simple question. The first half of the verse tells us Sarah lived for 100 years, 20 years, 7 years. And Rashi says the reason why it tells us by 100 years, and by 20 years, and by 7 years, to teach us that just like when she was 7, she was beautiful, the same thing when she was 20. And just like when she was 20, she was without sin, the same thing when she was 100, she was without sin. But then it says, Shnei Chayei Sara, this is the life of Sarah. And Rashi says, it comes to teach us, Kulam Shavim L'Toiva, they were all equal, for good. So the question is, the first half of the verse breaks apart her life, and the second half of the verse includes it all together. And the Rebbe explains very powerful as follows. The first half of the verse is referring to her specific spiritual work throughout her life. Meya Shana is a reference to the idea spiritually, keser. Her ratzain, her will for Hashem, her taina, her pleasant Hashem was strong. Esrim Shana is referring to her intellect, Chachma and Bina. She was connected to God through her intellect in a very deep way. Sheva Shanim is referring to her 7 emotions, and she connected to God in every one of those levels. The second half of the verse says, Kulam Shavim L'Toiva. Rashi says, Shavim, they're equal. L'Toiva, for good. What does good mean? So the Rebbe explains, we know that the source of good is Hashem. And the source of good is to do good. We all have a neshama. When we're connected to the neshama, we're connected to a place of good. And when you're connected to a place of good, it's all equal. So in other words, the first half of the verse, Rebbe explains, when you're going through life, and life is life. You have to deal with your emotions, you have to deal with your intellect, you have to deal with your will and pleasure for Hashem, the different aspects of life, beauty, sin, and so on and so forth. That's when you're going through the normal process of life. However, the second half of the verse teaches us something profound, that when you connect to your neshama, when you connect to your soul, and when you live a godly soul life, it's all equal. It's all balanced, it's all healthy, it's all consistent, it's all peace. That's when you connect to the neshama. So to answer the question, if you want to live a life of balance and serenity and peace and happiness where everything is stable, connect to your neshama, connect to your soul. By learning Chassidus, by learning Kabbalah, you will have a balanced and a healthy, great, beautiful life. Thanks so much for joining us for our weekly Torah lesson. This week's Torah lesson is dedicated to memory of Baruch ben Aryeh Leib, Shlomo ben Yosef, and Rachel bas Lipa. May their souls be elevated by the Torah we're studying in their memory. Thanks so much for joining us for our weekly Torah lesson. For more information, please see our website, chabadswf.org. Have a great and blessed, balanced, and beautiful week.